Ryan and I signed up, I think in July. That was the first Vue meetup I went to, and Ryan made the mistake of coming with me. And I was like, do they have openings? We gotta talk. He's like, what are you gonna talk about? It's like, I don't know, we'll figure out something later. So we got together at a coffee shop like a month ago to try to start planning this, and threw out a bunch of ideas, and ended up coming up with Vue and D3. So that's what we're gonna share with you tonight.
Any of you have experience with D3 or data visualization?
That's a good question.
Cool. Just want to know how much stuff we can make up. Okay, so D3 is, this is an outline of what we're going to do.
Yeah, this is just sort of the overview of the evening.
So we're going to walk through how to use the D3 library, which is just the JavaScript library. We're going to walk you through a couple of examples that we put together, including a bar graph and a pie graph, and kind of do both of those in like a traditional format and Vue format. And then we're going to talk to you guys about stuff that we learned, and putting this together and learning about D3 and using it with Vue, and kind of give you guys some stuff to take away for trying on your own after this. And I promise that will be fun.
Yeah. The original idea was to do like a workshop, but we decided that that would be way too hard. So we'll just give you some things to take home with you. So who are we, and how dare we talk to you about D3? Neither of us actually use it in our jobs. So it's sort of like, this is a cool thing we want to learn about. But we met at General Assembly, which is a new like galvanized type boot camp in Denver. Last September is when we started, so it's been about a year.
Yeah, and do you want to talk about where you work?
Yeah, sure. I work at IHS Market up in Boulder. They were going to sponsor the food tonight and just didn't get it together. We are a fintech company, so we do a lot of data scrubbing and visualizations for big banks you would have heard of. I just don't happen to use D3 yet. So.
And I work for a software company called PVBid, do full stack engineering for them, and it's, I guess I already described it like 5 minutes ago when I was talking about a Laravel job that we have open. But we do data visualization, but only use like chart.js and PyCharts if you're familiar with those. But this is my first, I guess both of our first adventures into D3, so hang on.
Okay, so why did we choose D3? I went into a little bit. We were throwing around some ideas like we should do Vuex state or like testing, and none of that is really that sexy to present on. So we knew that it would be like technically light, so it needed to be like engaging and sexy and interesting. So a little bit about the history of D3. This is like a sample from their main website page, which I'll have you go to in a minute. Mike Bostock is the guy who developed it, and he used to work for the New York Times graphics department. So he's got tons of experience doing this stuff, and decided he didn't like the tools and he was going to make his own library for it. So here's an example of a really cool chart that you could make. It's Lord of the Rings data, so it's all the connections between all the different characters. Just as an example, if you've never seen any D3 stuff before, I really like this one.
So if you are on a laptop or near someone with a laptop, I want you guys to just like explore a little bit and get your hands on D3 because it's like really interactive. Just go to Vue.js.org and there's an examples tab up at the top, and just kind of look at some of those and mess around. I think actually that graph, that big header graphic in the middle, you can actually click on any of those.
Yeah, I think so. That sounds right. And then when you're done, take a minute and tell the person next to you what your favorite one is. All right, ready, go.
Some of them are like super artsy, some of them are just like raw data display. Some of them are super interactive, which is cool too.
Alrighty, anyone want to share with the group? We can pull them up.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah, right.
Mike in the back, which one's your favorite?
Hierarchical edge bundling, that one right there.
Oh. Nice. What does it do? Oh, weird. Okay, what else? Someone from this table, what's your favorite one? I'll look it up for you.
The
Alright.
collision, what is it? I lost it. Collision detection. Collision detection.
Oh, it's like a game.
It pretty much is.
Sweet. Anyone else want to share their favorites? No. Okay, cool. Thanks for hearing us. I used to be a teacher, so gotta do parent share. What are we gonna talk about next? We told you guys why we chose D3. We've shown you some examples. The next slide is just a quick example of how to use it. So why don't you talk about this one?
Yeah, so I would recommend starting out with D3, like not to jump into anything very complicated. Especially like just do vanilla JavaScript. It's really approachable. This is just like straight DOM manipulation. Just those are just divs that I've manipulated with D3. And I think we have some code here. Code actually. This is an SVG, so you can do it with SVG or div or any DOM element, but the code kind of looks like jQuery. In fact, it's like fluent, and you can use selectors and apply attributes and classes and stuff to the elements. So I'll just walk you through kind of what's working here. So each one of these is just a rectangle tag, which is I don't know. I had no idea how to work with SVGs before I started doing this, but inside of SVG, you can use the rectangle tag to draw rectangles super simply, and you basically just pass it the height and width and position it on the page. Basically, like the core thing of D3 is being able to really easily.
Is that the one right?
Oh, yeah,
Draw splines.
I'm gonna look right here. Just how to kind of set up anything with D3. So at the core of everything is data. So up here we just have some like just really simple data, and we pass it with the data method to a D3 selection. So you every example you'll see uses this G tag, which is just a group tag in SVG. So that allows you to just kind of like tie a bunch of stuff together. So like bars and labels in this example. So what we're doing here is selecting all the groups. It doesn't matter if they exist or not yet. We're just saying we want to work with the groups inside of the SVG, and then we plug the data in. So the data just has to be an iterable. It could be anything as long as you can iterate through it. And when you call the enter method, it's just going to do like everything after that enter method to what you've selected with the data. So it's going to go through each group, and if there is not a group already, you're going to append a group tag. Or you're going to go through each data, and if there's not a group for it, you're going to append a group tag, and then you're going to position it. So you're just sliding it to the place where the bar chart, or where the bar is eventually going to be. And then over here, again, it just iterates through all of the data and does each one of these things for each data point. So again, it kind of looks like jQuery in a way, but the interesting thing is that if you notice in this attribute tag, everything, the second parameter for each thing is a function, and the parameter for that function, or for that callback function, is the data, that one instance of data. So it just does all that stuff to those 4 pieces of data, and you end up with a bar chart. So appending the rectangles, appending the labels, shading in the rectangles, and then just like a little bit of positioning and scaling. So any questions about that? Sorry if I didn't spend that long. Cool. Okay, thanks.
I didn't know what any of those things did. I was like, it's just working. Great.
Just leave that up there in 2 more seconds. You guys can start in, and we're good.
So the next thing Ryan did is he took it up to the next level, and he made the bar chart with D3 in Vue and added, as you can see on the little right hand, a little bit of data manipulation. So it's sorting the data by the country, and so what this data is it's years along the x-axis and number of gold medals. Is it gold?
It's total.
Copper.
Yeah,
Okay, total Olympic medals on the y-axis. And you have the data set on Kaggle, right?
Yeah, so is anyone familiar with Kaggle? It's just like a website that collects like a bunch of huge data sets that are open for use, and they also do like data science competitions. Really cool site. So I think we have.
So just for purposes of comparison, the first example we showed you, 2 files. When you incorporate Vue, a bazillion files. Even though it is more complicated as an app, it just adds a whole bunch of extra to your project. So that's why Ryan said if you're just starting, try to do plain D3 first before you get involved with stringing them together.
Yeah, and most of these are just like the Vue config files and stuff that just come when you run the Vue CLI.
But you have to do it if you want to use a CSV file, right? We figured out you can't just do a CSV parse. That's why we had to do it.
Yeah, we had to. I don't know. This was stuff that caused you a bunch of trouble. But when you're importing a CSV, it has to be in your public folder. Maybe someone that's smarter can tell me why that is. But I think it just has to do with the way that when you run npm serve, just the files that are made available for use. But yeah, a little bit more complicated. This data set was huge, and I just manipulated it a little bit just so I could reduce it down basically to just the amount of medals each country won each year. And then this is what the CSV parser comes with. So Vue is like a bunch of different libraries collected into one. Or I'm sorry, D3 is a bunch of different libraries collected into one. So one of the D3 packages or libraries is a CSV parser. So they're not all DOM manipulation data stuff, which is important to know because that's not what we're talking about next. Is that Vue and DOM manipulation libraries don't really work well together because of the virtual DOM. So it's good to know that there are a ton of parts of D3 that don't have anything to do with the DOM and just do like calculation and kind of helper function type stuff, like this CSV parser.
So I guess what I was getting at in this slide is just looking at how D3 kind of translates to Vue. This is the same piece of code you saw from our first example. We're setting up bars in D3, and here how you make a bar, instead of appending a rectangle, you actually just make it as like a, what would you call it? Like an HTML element. So
Yeah.
part of, I'm guessing it's like an SVG thing. And then you just have these attributes like you normally would in Vue. So we have height and width and transform, and we have height and width and transform. And then I guess we also added a class of black at some point. But
So you can kind of see, like we were saying, how the JavaScript translates to the Vue template.
simplest example. All right, so the next thing we tried to do that felt really simple at the outset was make a pie chart. And Ryan got it to work.
Again, one of the tricky things about working with Vue and D3 is the DOM competition. So obviously those like appends, don't use the append because, well, you can do it. It's just it causes some tricky conflict stuff. But basically you're gonna want to use the Vue template and the Vue methods and do as much as you can in Vue, and then use the helper methods that D3 offers you, like this handy arc method here. So there's stuff like the arc method, there's a pi method, and those are just calculators. So the arc takes your D3 data, whatever you plug into that data method, and will calculate SVG paths with it. So I think we have an example of what an SVG path looks like in one of these slides, and it's a complicated string. Yeah, there it
This
is.
is a hard way to build up your own SVG. You make the path yourself. And so I actually found this example and I was like, Ryan, I think I'm doing it wrong. This doesn't feel like it's easy. So you don't have to do it that way. If you want to be a nerd and learn things about SVG arcs, you can. Or you can just use D3, which you can modularly import, which is what Ryan figured out. So you just import whatever pieces you need from whatever D3 folder it's in, and then you can call it as you need it. So let's see, here's your dot arc, easy peasy. And then if you look at the other example, do you see how there's like dot auto radius, dot end radius? You can still string those along, right? It's way easier.
So yeah, basically it's just generating that crazy string that is the instructions to the SVG element to draw like one slice of that pie.
Cool. Any questions so far? We're like halfway done. Yeah.
I have a question. How are we bringing D3 into the project? Is it like an NPM module or just bringing it straight into the
So there are NPM modules for each individual piece of D3. So this arc method is from the library called D3 shape, and that is just like a beast of an import because it has, you can draw lines with it, you can draw curves with it, you can draw like pie chart slices. It has a handy generator that calculates, like you pass it all of your whole data set and it calculates how big each like slice of the pie should be, and then you can pass that into the arc generator to get the shapes. And there's like 1,000 like helper functions in that library for drawing SVGs.
So he's taking the original D3 and converted it into modules.
It's all modularized. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in defense of SVG, you can get something like Inkscape to draw it for you, and then you can figure out what module that you, what variable that you need to replace, and Vue's reactivity handles that really well.
What's that
So,
called?
Don't be
Inkscape?
on an SVG.
All right,
but
no,
don't do
that's
it
fair.
manually.
I don't know enough. Inkscape. Okay. I'm going to look that up later.
Is that
Cool.
like a SVG renderer?
Yeah, I mean, there's other things, it's a vector drawing, but I bet you there's a lot of vector drawing things that export to SVG. And then you just got like a text-based definition of a graphic that you can figure out how to update any particular variable, like the outside size or whatever. And it works on every platform that I know of that is major, not, like pi.
That actually brings me back to a really good foundational thing that I feel like I'm fuzzy on, but does everyone know what an SVG is? I did not realize D3 was an SVG thing. Does anyone want to explain it, like in human language? What does anyone know what it stands for? Okay,
I remember
something
what that
vector
says.
graphics. Scalable. Okay. And isn't it just like, unlike a PNG or a JPEG, it's not flat? Like everything is like.
Well, it's like
You can-
infinitely scalable. Like, and
Okay.
The, I guess, like aspect ratio of it won't get all messed up. So as you scale it bigger and bigger, it'll look the same. It won't
Okay, you
get all
don't lose any.
pixelated.
Okay.
Vector graphics are basically made of math.
What?
So that's why a
Why
computer
did I
can
pick
scale it
this?
without losing any fidelity.
Okay, so they just update the calculations and
Yep.
it still looks pretty beautiful.
Have you heard of
Thank
Logo?
It's coming in.
Logo, where you can tell them a thing to draw in a certain.
Oh, the turtle?
Yeah. it's
Yeah, I've
really not
seen
that different.
screenshots on Google Images.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Okay, cool. So the last couple of things we're going to talk about real quick are some key takeaways and then give you ideas for things you can go home tonight and start working on. This is something that Ryan alluded to. We all know the DOM really well, and that's what D3 uses. Vue obviously like injects this virtual DOM, and they both want to be in charge of it. So it can be a disaster if you try to use D3 like .append and those kind of DOM manipulation functions. I feel like you've summarized that really nicely all along. This one's first.
So something that I've found to be super helpful when trying to learn D3 in Vue is to search for D3 in React when you're trying to find examples. Because the challenges between Vue and React when using D3 are the same or super similar. And the examples will, if they work in React, they'll work in Vue. And the only difference is syntax. And it's not that hard. If you don't know React, it's not too hard to figure out what's going on these examples. So if you just search for D3 and Vue, you're not going to find a lot of solid examples. So big recommendation on that one.
I do just want to say that could be a good way for you to contribute to the Vue community. So I feel like in general, that's the one thing that Vue struggles with is having good documentation. So if you're working on a side project, outside of their own examples, we need more docs out there so we don't have to look at React stuff. So. All right, these are kind of the 3 levels. I'll give it to you. Something easy you can do when you get home tonight. Don't use Vue. Don't hurt yourself.
Yeah, just pick like a bar chart or something simple and just start there. You'll be able to do it like an hour and quickly move on to more interesting stuff from there.
Let's see, sorry, can you go back real quick? The other 2 easy things you can do, keep looking at the site. Just like go look at examples for 10 more minutes. Maybe something will come to you as you're flipping through the examples. Ryan found these 2 really good articles that I recommend you could read one of them, 10, 15 minutes. And then also, don't try to use a CSV. It's too much. It's hard to code that data. All right.
So we have a repo with all the examples that you've seen here. It's a little bit messy right now. I haven't finished documenting it yet, but if you go to GitHub Ryan104 /Vue-D3, you'll find these examples ranging in complexity from an HTML only D3 bar chart to the pie chart as the most complex example that I get up there.
If you open a pull request by the next Vue meetup and it's the best one, we will buy you a 6-pack of beer. Again, in terms of trying to contribute to the greater Vue community, if we put examples online that people can find, it all helps. So you help yourself and you help everyone wanting to learn Vue and D3. And then if you're crazy, Ryan came up with some crazy examples.
Yeah, I just kind of came up with a few things that if I had infinite time and skill level and patience. There's just so many cool things you can do just by looking at the D3 examples and the Kaggle data sets that are available. So that first example we showed with the Olympic gold medals, I thought it'd be like super cool to kind of like stack gold, silver, and bronze on top of each other and just make it super interactive. And there's so much data that you can use and make it look really cool. Another idea would be to, like, let's say you want to start a Kickstarter, but you don't really care what it is. You just want to figure out what's going to make you the most money. They have a data set that just lists all the Kickstarter categories and how much they asked for and how much they actually made. So it'd be cool to visualize that and say, oh, the thing that makes the most money the most amount of time is such and such kind of project. Not that that would really help me, but I thought it'd be a cool idea. And then there's a like Pokemon battle stats data set that I thought would be cool to kind of visualize that and just see what the most powerful guy you can get is. And there's also this, I found this cool example that someone made a random fantasy map generator, which just blows my mind. I played around with it for like an hour, way too much time. But yeah, it's all with D3.
Oh. All right, that's all we got. You guys have
Questions?
come talk to us after.
Cool. Thank you.
Is there a green